What up YouTube, welcome back to a new video with Rams fan YT. In today's video we are looking at football nicknames. Very interesting subject. I'm sure everybody has wondered at one point why their nickname is what it is, or maybe they already knew but was interested in maybe another club's nicknames of, say, why is Everton called the Toffees, or why is, I don't know, Peterborough United called the Posh. Which will be addressed in this video, but we will continue down the pyramid with, I was certainly interested in finding out why the Portsmouth called Pompey. I found that out, but that will come in another video. But let's start with the Premier League clubs and Arsenal. They are nicknamed the Gunners. Well, that is because the club was formed in 1886 by munitions workers in the Royal Arsenal factory in Woolwich in southeast London, near where Arsenal were initially based. The Royal Arsenal factory produced weapons and explosives, and so of the nickname, and indeed the cannon on their badge, is a nod to their heritage of being a football club of that team. The Arsenal we know was actually formed as Dial Square Football Club and was named after a workshop at the heart of the Royal Arsenal factory. It went on to become Royal Arsenal, and then Woolwich Arsenal, and then the Arsenal, before simply being Arsenal. But given the history associated with the Royal Arsenal factory, the nickname the Gunners has been a permanent reminder of the club's roots. Aston Villa, the Villains, as in Villans. The club name of Aston Villa, well, Villa derives from Villa Cross Wesleyan Chapel, whose former cricket club provided founders of the Aston Villa Football Club, and Aston was the name of the suburb in Birmingham they played in. But actual Villa did once stand in the area and was large enough of a landmark to have the district named after it. The nickname Villains is a wordplay that would confuse many people with its spelling, a way of many people incorrectly spelling it as the villains of like an evil villain in, I don't know, a Marvel movie, or someone like Darth Vader or something. Brentford, the Bees. During the 1894-95 season, when Brentford were just known as just the Bees, as in the letter B, i.e. short for Brentford, students at Borough Road College shouted their college chant, "Book up Bees," at a match, and the local press misinterpreted their letter B's for the animal bees, and the nickname stuck. Brighton and Hove Albion, the Seagulls. Said to have been invented by supporters in a West Street pub on Christmas Eve in 1975, as a response to the Crystal Palace chants of "Eagles, Eagles." The cry of "Seagulls, Seagulls" rapidly caught on. Burnley, the Clarets. Well, Clarets refers to the celebrated club colours, which they wear as a tribute to the Football League champions of the day, Aston Villa. So, that's a pretty boring nickname, don't they, Burnley? Think of a new one, which is not just a colour. Same could be said with the next one, Chelsea with the Blues. The nickname of the pensioners, though, was originally their nickname, and I could probably do another video into that in itself if you want to see old nickname, potential name, why the old nickname was dropped or something. Well, that was dropped under the instructions of Ted Drake, a former star player who became Chelsea's coach in the 1950s. Drake felt that the pensioners tag was an embarrassment to the club, and there was even TV footage of him reading a statement to that exact effect. Chelsea were mostly known as the Blues from then on after the colour of their kit. Crystal Palace, the Eagles. Crystal Palace started using the nickname the Eagles at the behest of their new high-profile manager, Malcolm Allison, in 1973. I think I will do something about the lighting condition in here. Bit dark. Right, there you go. Hopefully you can see a bit better there. But it was named at the behest of their new high-profile manager, Michael Allison, in 1973. You see, Allison looked to revolutionise the club to try and make them seem as a bigger club and be ultimately better than where they were at the time. And so he adopted the nickname from the Portuguese side, Benfica, who at the time were one of the most successful teams in Europe. I think they won Europe around about that time. But up until this point, Palace had most commonly been known as the Glaziers. But the new Eagles nickname quickly began to dominate, really. With a Lisbon-based outfit being the Eagles, Alisson clearly was motivated by the club's immense success, which he hoped to emulate in his new position at Crystal Palace. And despite a change in nicknames throughout the club's existence, both were represented on the team's current badge, with the sports an eagle perched on top of a glass palace. So both are reflected, just the Eagles is more the forefront of the nickname. Everton the Toffees. Everton became known as the Toffees because of the club's original ground, which was at that time Anfield, and that had two toffee shops nearby, the ancient Everton Toffee House and Mother Noblet's Toffee Shop, which was much closer to the new stadium of Goodison Park. The Toffee House was the pride and joy of Molly Bushell, who is said to have invented Everton toffees, and many early Evertonians would stop off at the shop while on their way to watch their first matches. Everton moved ground away from Anfield to Goodison due to a rent dispute, and there soon developed a rivalry between the two toffee shops when Mother Noblet opened her own near Goodison and supposedly invented Everton mints in a bid to rival Bushell's toffees. The Toffee House was located near the Queen's Head Hotel, in which early club meetings took place, and opposite the Everton lockup that has featured on the club's crest since the 1930s. Yet these two streets were entirely different from one another. Mother Noblet's Mints had a toffee centre with a hard sugar cell with black and white stripes, which I think is a bit like a mint humbug, really. This is an apparent nod to the colours previously worn by Everton of black and white stripes. The toffees, meanwhile, were made of boiling raw sugar with water before adding butter and an essence of lemon, although some old recipes suggest that ginger was also added, giving it a unique flavour. Leeds United, the Peacocks. I'm not including the Whites because it's just boring if it's named after their kits. But the Peacocks nickname originates from the name of the pub closest to Leeds' home ground of Ellen Road, which is called the Old Peacock. Although I think it may have been changed now to maybe it's the Bielsa pub. In fact, the Ellen Road site at the foot of Beeston Hill used to be owned by Bentley's Brewery, you see. And then the owners of the Old Peacock, at the time they were, and the ground used to be known simply as the Old Peacock Ground. But now the nickname is obsolete and instead are named after their kit colours of white, so a bit boring. Leicester City, the Foxes. Because Leicester is widely considered to be the origin of fox hunting in Britain, so it naturally made sense for the city, the nickname of the club in the city, to be named after it. This came to a great prominence in the 18th century, not least through the father of fox hunting, Hugo Meynell, who was from the Leicestershire village of Quorn, which, yes, is where the Quorn, the vegetarian substituted meat Quorn comes from. Even still, though, one of the world's oldest fox hunting groups was established some time before then, and indeed the Leicestershire-based the Quorn Hunt formed in 1696. Quorn was also where the foxhounds would be kennelled between 1753 and 1904. Another Leicestershire village is called Foxton, and that takes its name from the vast amount of foxes which is spotted in the area. So you could say that was the route they took. So that's really why there's a connection with Leicester and foxes comes from, really. A steep history of hunting them and the occasional sighting of them in the county. The club officially adopted the nickname in 1948, having been called the Citizens, after it was obviously just named City, when they got the name Leicester City, of course, and Nuts, which was alluded to Filbert Nuts, obviously a nearby place to Filbert Street Stadium, and during the 1920s, that emerged, but when they originally were called Leicester Foss, they were nicknamed the Fossils, a sort of a wordplay on that name. Liverpool, the Reds. It's obviously from the kit colour. I mean, what else do you expect to say? Well, I'll tell you a bit about why Liverpool have played in red. Well, they've always played in red shirts, but they had white shorts, you see, until 1964. a bit like current Arsenal kits, really, when manager Bill Shankly decided to change to an all-red strip. You see, Liverpool played in all red for the first time against Anderlecht, and as Ian St John recalled in his autobiography, he, being Shankly, thought the colour scheme would carry a psychological impact. Red for danger, red for power. He came into the dressing room one day and threw a pair of red shorts to Ronnie Yeats. "Get into those shorts and let's see how you look," he said. "Christ, Ronnie, you look awesome, terrifying. You look 7 feet tall." "Why not go the whole hog, boss?" I suggested. "Why not wear red socks? Let's go all in red." Shankly approved, and an iconic kit was born. It took the media only a day to start calling the club the Reds. Manchester City, the citizens, as in city being spelled the way that Manchester City would, not the actual spelling of citizens. Manchester City Citizens is simply an adaptation of our city name, you see. However, it does also imply that Manchester City fans are citizens of Manchester, which could be considered a bit of a snipe at Manchester United, with many non-local fans. Though not strictly an official nickname, you may occasionally hear Man City or their fans being referred to as citizens, or the other type of citizens, the normal spelling. Put simply, these names have simply evolved from their team name, City. If you join Man City's official free membership, though, you become a citizen with the Y of the city. Well, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the club launched Citizens at Home, an online resource allowing fans to remain close to the club while during lockdown. This included things like football coaching videos, mindfulness classes, culinary challenges, and much, much more. It was a very good scheme, actually. Manchester United, the Red Devils. They were previously known as the Busby's Babes. You may probably know why, but Mark Busby really wanted to change the club nickname to something a bit more appropriate after the Munich air disaster plane crash. And as a survivor, Busby felt it was appropriate to change the club's nickname to something more experienced and a bit more intimidating. So he opted for the Red Devils. On the 6th of February 1958, the United team's chartered plane crashed immediately after takeoff, and so 23 people died, including team captain Ken Raymond, and 8 other players in what became known as the Munich air disaster, just to give you a bit of backstory. But we need to go back to the 1930s to find the name of the Red Devils, and that was when a Salford rugby club was touring France while playing in red and white kits, like Manchester United's today. They were spectacular in winning all 6 of their matches. French journalists did them as the Les Diables Rogues, or no, Les Diables Rouges, or the Red Devils. After the plane crash, Busby felt a more fitting name was needed, and he found inspiration from the Salford Rugby Club, and it has stayed ever since. Newcastle United, the Magpies. Newcastle United are known as the Magpies because of their iconic black and white home strips, which is the same colours as those of the Eurasian magpie bird, not the American one, which is a bit more of a blue tinge to it. Though after being founded in 1892 by merging 2 clubs of the West End and East End of Newcastle, Newcastle's jerseys were not initially black and white. They wore red and white or red and black, among other colours, with black and white firstly their chain strip. It was not until 1894 when it was agreed that their home kit should differ in colour to those worn by the East and West End previously, though they began wearing the black and white on a regular basis. The Magpies even featured on 2 former Newcastle United crests between 1976 and 1983, which was my personal favourite Newcastle United logo, where the bird was placed in front of the city's castle keep and on the River Tyne. And it was also from 1983 to 1988, which saw a small little magpie underneath a bold spelling of NUFC in a circular shape, like a bit like a ball. I don't really like that one though. Norwich City, the Canaries. Norwich Football Club were called the Canaries because of a history of when the birds had come over with the strangers in the 16th century. They were basically just a load of, I think, Flemish merchants, and the birds sang to the workers when working on the machines. As when the machines would make the noise, the canaries would reply, almost like medieval radios, if you want to to think of something a bit more contemporary comparison, and will keep the workers company throughout the night of work. Not only does this inspire the well-known nickname for the club, it also influences the kit's colour and the badge of the team. This is shown by the distinct yellow and green attire that they wear when playing, as well as having a canary standing on a football, which also relates to the fans' jingle "On the Ball City," which is known as the oldest football jingle in the modern day of football. Southampton the Saints. Southampton are known as the Saints as they were originally founded at St Mary's Church of England's Young Men's Association. The club changed their name to Southampton Football Club in 1897 as they joined the Southern League, but the Saint part of their name stuck by the way of a nickname. They have maintained their church-going roots ever since, not by the team attending church every single week, no, just through their nickname, but they do also sing the song "When the Saints Go Marching In," which is a popular thing sung on all Saints' Day, but also in Southampton games, and remains one of their fan base's most popular songs. And they also have a halo at the top of their crest, which is another nod to their saintly nickname. Tottenham Hotspur Spurs. Tottenham was founded by a group of boys aged 13 to 14 from St John's Middle Class School and Tottenham Grammar School in 1882. Bit of a posh lot, them lot, you see. And they were trying to decide on a name, and the boys considered Northumberland Rovers before settling on Hotspur. In 1884, the club was renamed to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club to avoid confusion with the older Hotspur, which was also located in London. And I think something like the Tottenham-based one was getting poached from the other London one, and the other London was going to get the Tottenham one. All very confusing. And so Spurs has been a nickname for the club since at least 1883. So how did the boys decide on the name Hotspur? For that, you have to go back to the 1300s. And one of the most famous characters from William Shakespeare's histories is Sir Henry Percy. He was son of Henry Percy, the first Earl of Northumberland, which obviously relates a bit to their Northumberland Rovers, which we're talking about, and he was born in 1364. He was a major character in Shakespeare's Henry IV, Part 1. Lots of Henrys going on here. But it was better known as Sir Harry Hotspur. Hotspur did not appear in Henry IV Part 2 because he was killed during the Battle of Shrewsbury in 1403 at the age of 39. But he did lead a lasting effect on the Northumberland county and the location of a club that now carries his name. Sir Henry Percy, you see, was given the nickname of Hotspur for his valour in battle. He would charge into the thick of the fight fiercely and with great alacrity, often wearing spurs on his boots to encourage his horse into battle. Tottenham Hotspur, which has often prided itself on playing entertaining attacking football, thus has proven to be fitting for this nickname, really. Watford the Hornets. During its history, Watford has undergone many kit changes. One of such changes occurred during the 1959-60 season, when the kit was changed to gold shirts and black shorts. And after a popular vote by the supporters club, the nickname was changed to the Hornets. You see, Watford were initially nicknamed as being the Brewers, referring to Benskin's Brewery. And the brewery was owned the leasehold of Vicarage Road, you see, where the club has played since 1922. In the 1920s, Watford played in blue shorts and socks with white shorts. Or white, it should say blue shirts and socks and white shorts. During this time, they were known simply as the Blues. But obviously, the colour changed the name. West Ham United, the Hammers. I've chosen this one. There is many, including the Iron and the Academy of Football. But contrary to popular belief, the name the Hammers is nothing to do with the club being called West Ham United. So I decided to take a bit more of a deeper dive into it. And since the club was formed as Thames Ironworks in 1895, they was always had two diagonally crossing hammers in their badge. In fact, I'm pretty certain West Ham have never played in West Ham. The club were renamed West Ham, you see, in 1901, when they were kicked out their Canning Town home in an ownership dispute and moved to Plaistow. They've also played in East Ham, in Stratford, but never in West Ham. So Why are you called West Ham United? Wolverhampton Wanderers, Wolves. The Wolves is simply just a shortened version of Wolverhampton, and since the 19th century, the city of Wolverhampton and its various clubs have been referred to as Wolves. There's no well-defined origin of the term, other than it is a local nickname for the city. Wolverhampton Wanderers has had the name Wolves and an image of a wolf on programmes since at least the mid-1920s and 30s area, and in the 1960s the club included a leaping wolf on the club badge. And since 1979, the badge has consisted of a wolf head design in gold and black. AFC Bournemouth, the Cherries. Despite some saying so, the name doesn't come after a choice of colours for their shirts. You see, the Cherries nickname comes from them playing on the site of the Cooper Dean estate, which was home to a number of cherry orchards. That's why. Barnsley, the Tykes. Well, in case you didn't already know, Barnsley are based in South Yorkshire. And the Tykes is usually a derogatory term, often used to describe Yorkshiremen by folk from other parts of England, and they are then called Tykes for that reason. The term Tyke has a connotation of a hard-working man, not normally a woman, afraid. That wasn't really used during them times, so they didn't tend to work massively in the sort of arduous labour. But the word stems from the Old Norse, where it would mean a female dog. So you could argue that Barnsley could be called the Bitches, but you know. In medieval times, it was more commonly used to describe a mischievous boy or an urchin or something like that. During the 17th and 18th centuries, though, it was also used to refer to people from Tyneside, and the Sheffield style writes, a tyke was rough, unkempt, combative, but also sly, shrewd, and careful with money. Another alleged Yorkshire attribute, a tight tyke almost to say. But in more recent times, it has become reserved exclusively for Yorkshiremen, particularly during the industrial era, when many of Barnsley's inhabitants would work in the mines and steel mills. You don't have to be a Barnsley fan to be a tyke, though. You can be so called yourself if you were just born in Yorkshire or lived there for long enough, anyhow. Tykes isn't Barnsley's only nickname either, because as well as the Reds, because they play red obviously, the club used to be known as the Colliers before Tykes became a prominent term for them in about the 1960s. Birmingham City, the Blues. Named after the colour of their kit, Birmingham City have worn blue kit since 1875 and have worn royal blue in particular for the majority of their history. So it's a really long time they've actually worn the colour. This was because when the club was formed as Small Heath Alliance, the members decided amongst themselves that their colours would be blue. Their blue kit colour was established right from the start, with the first strip a dark blue shirt with a white sash and white shorts. Several variations were worn, but the royal blue stuck and has become the club's main colour kit for over 100 years. Blackburn Rovers, we'll go with Rovers. Rovers is a common term for a side which is willing to travel distances for victory, and logically fans shortened the club's name to Rovers, which had it as sort of like a surname, you could argue, if clubs had that. Blackpool, the Tangerines. Again, named after the colour of the kit, Blackpool first began wearing tangerine for the 1923-24 season, after a recommendation from referee Albert Hargreaves, who officiated an international match between the Netherlands and Belgium, and was impressed by the Dutchman's colours. Bit odd. Before changing to tangerine permanently, the team tried several different colours. Blue and white striped shirts in the 1890s, becoming known as the Merry Stripes, a mixture of red or white shirts at the turn of the 20th century, and during the First World War, black, yellow, and red. The latter was adopted to include the colours of the flag of Belgium, a show of support for the large numbers of Belgian refugees that had arrived in town. After the war, they wore white shirts and navy blue shorts, and the board introduced another change in 1934, when the team appeared in alternating dark and light blue stripes, which have been reintroduced several times in the mid-1990s and 2002. The Black Bulls returned to the top flight in 2010 as the club's third kit, and as their away kit in 2019-20. But they bowed to public pressure in 1939 and settled on tangerine. Between 1938 and 1958, Blackpool's kit consisted of tangerine shirts, white shorts, and navy blue socks. The club now uses tangerine socks, though navy was used as a secondary colour in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Bristol City, the Robins. The decision was made in 1904 to adopt Ashton Gate as their new home. The players by now wore red shirts and white shorts, which were adopted in 1897, and a combination almost unchanged for the following 100 years, which would earn him the nickname the Robins. Cardiff City, the Bluebirds. The play The Bluebird of Happiness by Belgian writer Maurice Maeterlinck had proved hugely popular and was performed at Cardiff's New Theatre in October 1911 to rave reviews. It is believed a Cardiff supporter caught up in the hype, christened his club with the name in their new blue strip. Coventry City, the Sky Blues. While most followers of Coventry City believe that Sky Blue is a more recent innovation, actually a Sky Blue kit was first introduced in 1889. The city used to be a major producer, you see, of coloured materials, especially in sky blue. There is an old expression, as true as Coventry blue. Returned to the light blue and white stripes of 1913 until 1936. But they were predominantly known as Peeping Toms after the Lady Godiva sort of situation. I could tell you the story of it, or I could just skip it. Basically, she rode around naked on a horse around the city of Coventry, and a person looked at her and was claimed to have turned stone or something like that. The little blackbirds and the bantams were also used because they didn't have a nickname at the time, and the bantams were fighting birds. They were known as the Bantams until 1962, when Jimmy Hill brought back the sky blue kit, and the nickname followed suit. Derby County, the Rams. The song The Derby Ram led to the mascot of a local army regiment being a ram, and in East Street we even have a statue of a massive beast. You may have seen it if you've been to Derby. When in 1867, Llewellyn Jewett wrote his book The Ballads and Songs of Derbyshire, he claimed that by then the Derby Ram had been sung for at least a century. It is claimed that in 1796, the first US president, George Washington, sang the Derby Ram to a French child. No one knows where or why or how the song originated, really. But in 1855, the 1st Regiment of Derbyshire Militia adopted a ram as its regimental mascot. Through many reorganisations of the army, we still see Lance Corporal Derby 2019, although it may have changed 2021 or 2022 rather, nowadays. And he was promoted as reward for his good behaviour, paraded around Pride Park Stadium when the 2nd Battalion of the Mercian Regiment is in town. Lance Corporal Derby, a pedigree Swaledale ram, was presented to the Mercians by the Duke of Devonshire. He is paid £3.75 a day and draws his own rations and has to have his leave card with him when he takes his annual holiday on the Chatsworth estate. A bit of a funny folklore sort of thing going on. The Rams have been going by that nickname since at least 1900, although even into the 1920s, the newspapers still often referred to the club as simply the county. Unlike the Mercians, the Rams haven't got the facilities to look after a live animal, but they do have Rammy, the mascot. Fulham, the Cottagers. The Cottagers is pretty self-explanatory, really. Fulham's home ground is, of course, called Craven Cottage, so the nickname derives from there. The stadium is called Craven Cottage because in 1780 the original cottage was a royal hunting lodge built by William Craven, the 6th Baron of Craven. It was constructed close to where the Johnny Haynes stand is at Craven Cottage now. In fact, but at that time it was surrounded by woods, which was made up part of Anne Boleyn's hunting grounds. Though it should be noted that this is not the same cottage as Fulham's current stadium, as it burnt down in May 1888. But it doesn't matter, there's still a cottage there where the stadium is called, and area is called Cottage Pavilion, where fans can see from the balcony. But this was constructed in 1905 by Archibald Leach, 9 years after Fulham had already played the ground. Huddersfield Town, the Terriers. The very apt nickname the Terriers was introduced in the 1969-70 season by promotion-winning manager Bill Brook, acknowledging the terrier-like qualities of fitness and tenacity of Ian Greaves' young side. The first Yorkshire Terrier to be registered with the Kennel Club in the 1880s was also named Huddersfield Ben. Hull City, the Tigers. Named the Tigers after the colour of their kit, being orange and black. These colours were proposed as primary colours for the club's inception in 1904, and were certainly in use as early as March 1905, when the suggestion of Hull Daily Mail sports correspondent Afflio to nickname the club the Tigers based on their jerseys proved to be popular. Luton Town, the Hatters. The club's nickname, the Hatters, reflects Luton's historical connection with the hat-making trade, which has been prominent there since the 17th century. The nickname was originally a variant of the now rarely seen straw platers. Supporters of the club are also called Hatters. Middlesbrough, or Borough. Well, borough is just the shortening of the longer word of borough, which can also be shortened to bruh, which is used in the case of Middlesbrough. Millwall, the Lions. They were known as the Dockers, you see, till around the turn of the century, when things in Africa came into the vogue during the Boers War. With Millwall's cup run to the semi-finals in 1900, they were referred to as Lions for their acts of giant killing, and the name stuck and was adopted as the club's nickname and emblem. It did not appear on club shirts as a badge, though, until the 1930s. Nottingham Forest, Forest. They were created in 1865 as a special meeting at the Clinton Arms Hotel in Sherwood Street. And since their first appearances were made at the Forest Recreation Ground, their chosen nickname was synonymous with the location, and hence the short nickname is Forest. Contrary to popular belief, it is absolutely nothing to do with the Sherwood Forest being in Nottinghamshire. Peterborough United were posh. In 1921, the manager of Fletton United, later Peterborough United, was quoted as saying he was looking for posh players to form a posh team. By posh, he meant good, and not the meaning of the word we see today as a bit upper class and a bit full of themselves, a cup of tea and all that. No, it just meant good, and it stuck from that. Before that, you see, Fletton United were known as the Brickies or Clay Daubers due to the brickworks in the area. Preston North End, the Lily-Whites. After having played in either blue and white hooped or striped shirts, Preston North End starting sporting the famous white shirts and navy blue shorts, which gave inspiration to Spurs and a myriad of other clubs around the country, and this kit eventually earned them the nickname the Lily-Whites. Queen's Park Rangers, the R's. The R's is a shortened version of Rangers, but to not confuse them with Scottish clubs Queen's Park and Rangers. Really, most of the players also came from Queen's Park, suburb of London. Reading, the Royals. Reading are nicknamed the Royals due to Reading's location in the Royal County of Berkshire, though they were previously known as the Biscuit Men due to the town's association with Huntley and Palmer's Biscuit Company. Sheffield United, the Blades. Sheffield United nicknamed the Blades from the most famous trade of the town, steel making. Blades or Cutlers were formerly the name for all senior Sheffield football clubs, and particularly when they were playing away. United were also occasionally called the Laynites. A popular headline in the newspapers of those days when United and Wednesday played each other was a clash of the Blades. The name Blades was used far more by United supporters than the name Cutlers, whereas the Wednesday supporters encouraging their team always thought it was their right to use the name Blades, since they were the older club, and so by right it should be theirs. However, in 1907, they were the only one due to Sheffield Wednesday being nicknamed the Owls. We'll find out why they were next episode of this. Stoke City, the Potters. The club's nickname is the Potters because it's named after the pottery industry in Stoke-on-Trent. I mean, I think they've still got quite a famous pottery trade there to this day, but probably not as much as back in the day when they were first nicknamed there. Swansea City, the Jacks. There are various theories. I'm not doing Swans, by the way, because that's just too obvious. It's just sorting of Swansea. There are various theories about where the Jack nickname came from. Some say it's because sailors from the city were known as Jacks. Others reckon the name came from lunchboxes used by Swansea miners. But the most popular explanation is that people from Swansea are named after Jack the dog, a black retriever who lived in the city's docks in the 1930s. I know, a bit weird. Jack would respond to cries for help from the water and is said to have saved no fewer than 27 people who got into difficulty. So he's a good dog, really. And there is actually a monument to Jack on Swansea Promenade, so they may be taking it a bit too far, really. West Bromwich Albion, the Baggies. Although known in their early days as the Fossils, the club's more popular nickname among supporters came to be the Baggies, a term which the club itself looked down upon for many years, but later embraced. The phrase was first heard at the Hawthorns in the 1900s, but its exact origins are uncertain. One suggestion is that the name was bestowed on Albion supporters by their rivals at Aston Villa Football Club, because of the large baggy trousers that many Albion fans wore at work to protect themselves from molten iron in the factories of the Black Country. Club historian Tony Matthews, however, suggests that it derives from the bagmen who carried the club's matchday takings in big leather bags from the turnstiles to the cash office on the halfway line. Other theories relate to the baggy shorts worn by various players during the club's early years, and the official club mascots are named Baggy Bird and Albi. Very original. Both are based on a fossil and which is depicted on the club's crest. That is the end of today's video and part 1 of this series I'm doing. We'll have another 2 parts coming up, but and the second part will be a week today. A history of your club will be back with Shrewsbury Town on Monday. But goodbye for now.